Let me turn up your volume a little bit. Alright. The stream status is good. That means I can exit out of this dude. And I can go back to this dude. And people will tune in, but I'll keep it completely honest. Going live is a lot easier than doing it pre-recorded and then editing afterwards. So there's that. We already have somebody in there, so let me roll the intro. What's up, Giants fans, Hub watchers, YouTube subscribers, Twitter and Instagram followers. I see we got Dylan Renner in the chat, and of course Dan himself, the guy that is my guest today. Lestat Walton, what's up, bro? Edward Chen, how you guys doing? So for those of you that don't know, Kevin Cronin, what you doing? Dan from 5WideFootball. 5WideFootball, they're a blog, a YouTube channel. They got a Twitter page. They're a fantasy football type of channel slash blog type page you guys might want to check out. And I've been working with Dan for about 3 or 4 months now. We've been running this podcast called The Fantastic Giants, kind of combining fantasy football along with the Giants themselves. We just been talking Giants. Sometimes we get into fantasy, sometimes we get into NFL. We've never went live before, but we've been doing the podcast for about 3 or 4 months now. Dan, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing? I'm happy to be on here as usual. Excited that you just gave me a nice little plug. And I'm just, excited to talk Giants football like we usually do.
Exactly. And I just realized I did not get a chance to actually put his links in the description, but I think because he commented, you can go to his channel, right? Because you
Uh,
actually commented in the live chat.
uh, th- yeah, I commented from my personal, not the 5 wide one though. So that I should switch my accounts real quick. I also put in my blog, but I screwed it up twice.
Well, that's
So
completely
here,
fine. Look, you already got a new sub. My guy Dylan over here, Dylan, one of the biggest supporters of the channel, says then he's subbing. You want to give them a quick
nice.
overview of exactly what 5 Wide is before we get into the episode? Because I'm sure there's a couple of them that's never really watched the show before.
So 5 wide is primarily fantasy football. Though I do hop on here and talk Giants. Right now we just had a episode last week. Actually, it was Saturday. That was all about starting up a league. I just posted something on how to start a league, different apps you can use, different sites. I do a lot of the rankings. I bring on a lot of other experts, and we just kind of try to get you as prepared for fantasy football as you can. Lots of going into deep sleepers, things like that. So anyone who wants to hop on, there's always great content, I
Oh, and
believe at
it's
least.
not just himself. Dan runs it with a couple other people, the blog and the
Yes.
channel.
Yep. I got a few of my friends from college and from high school that come on and that post some stuff as well.
And they're no scrubs either. He's been playing since how many? Over 10 years now, basically, right?
Yeah. I've been in, according to Yahoo, 39 leagues over 13 years.
Nice. And it looks like Dylan already has a question for you. He says, "No problem. Sounds cool. Do you think Slayton is underrated or viewed as a sleeper?" I would be
Yes.
guessing in fantasy terms here.
Yeah. Slayton is definitely a sleeper right now. He would have been one or two. I can't remember. We were just looking up the other day. He would have been, I think, the number two rookie wide receiver in 2018. His ADP right now, he's going in the middle rounds. I think Slayton is definitely going to finish as a top 30, maybe even top 20 wide receiver this season. And right now, you can get him back at like 50 something.
Is he really being projected that far back? Like people just didn't know about Darius Slayton last year or something?
I can pull it up on my phone. I got the sleeper app which says the rankings, but yeah, he's going way below where you'd expect.
And by the way,
Let's
guys, you tuning in here, share the live stream. What Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Just share it, get a little bit more people in here. But it's funny that you brought that up, Dylan, because right now, and it's funny that you brought up he was actually the second best rookie wide receiver last year. I guess by fantasy numbers is what you're saying.
no, no, he would have been in 2018, but he
Oh,
wasn't like, cause there were so many good ones with Metcalf, McLaurin, Hollywood Brown. People forget just how good he did.
okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dylan. The last time you did that, I was about to say Discord. Yeah, last time you went into Kid Blue's live streaming, caused a little mayhem. But I was about to say, it's funny that that question came up because right now, before you called and after you called, I was working on and will be working on a video titled "Five Reasons You Should Be Excited for the New York Giants in 2020," and one of them was dealt with Slayton and the fact that a lot of people do underrate him. I think people don't realize how good of a wide receiver the Giants got in the fifth round. And as of right now, I'm not calling him a number one, but the potential is there. And at the very least, in the fifth round, you got a really good number two wide receiver, which is a great value pick, which a lot of people just don't realize.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I pulled it up real quick. He's going 42nd as a wide receiver, and he's going back at the 103rd spot. So in a 12-man league, you're talking about the ninth round.
Really?
Yeah.
That's late. I think I'm gonna guess maybe as the season rolls around and we get closer and closer to it, he might raise a little bit because that's very low.
Yeah. No. No. Yeah. He's going behind guys like Mike Williams, Marvin Jones. He's only one spot ahead of Sanders, two spots ahead of Shepard. So I think he's definitely a sleeper. I'm gonna answer one more fancy question, then we can answer the one about Jabril Peppers if you're okay.
Sure.
All right. So overrated players or players you should stay away from. I think Evan Ingram on the Giants.
I think anybody that watches football knows at this point to stay away from him just because of the injuries.
I think Evan Ingram's definitely pretty overrated. I was looking. I think Kyler Murray. He's going right now. A lot of people have him as third or fourth best quarterback.
In the league?
I'm
In like
in
a fantasy league?
fantasy because he gets a lot of rushing yards, and he just
I
added
still can't
Hopkins.
see it, man. That's very overrated for me.
Staying with the Cardinals, I would go Christian Kirk because of the amount of miles they have to feed and how much Kyler runs the ball. And then I would probably trying to think somebody else who's going a little bit higher. A lot of people are very high on Calvin Ridley, and though I think he's really good, until Julio takes that step back, he's not going to be a top 10 receiver. So, and he's going, like, people are talking about him being that. So,
I'm still kind of hung up on the Kyler Murray thing because Dylan says he's seen that too. With Kyler going as the number three quarterback, it's like, all right, so I would assume Mahomes and Lamar would be the guys ahead of him, but you still got guys like Russell Wilson who are great fantasy quarterbacks. Well, I'm not sure about Aaron Rodgers anymore, but I remember like just last year, 2 years ago, he was still a pretty good fantasy quarterback. Drew Brees would be a good fantasy quarterback. Then again, he did get injured last year, so maybe that plays into it. But I can't see Kyler Murray and number three, a rookie who, in my opinion, with all the hype that he came in with, like the fact that the dude basically kicked out another number one pick out of the room, that he's getting all this hype. Like, come on, bro. Daniel Jones, and we have mostly Giants fans in the chat, so I know they'll agree with me. Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, at least from what we've seen last year. Just basing it off of last year, I still think Kyler Murray has a higher ceiling than Jones, but I haven't seen him, used any of his potential really yet.
I actually have been waffling back and forth on who I like more in my rankings, Daniel Jones or Kyler Murray. I have Kyler Murray back at like 7 or 8. I think like Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, obviously Lamar, obviously Patrick Mahomes. Like those five just I think are definitely better than him. And then like talking about maybe better than him, you got Carson Wentz, you got Deshaun Watson, you got Drew Brees, Daniel Jones. I think he's in that tier. Drew Brees isn't quite the quarterback he was a few years ago, and I don't like Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's that great. I think his numbers have been trending downward. And, I mean, the Packers went out and drafted a QB in the second round, so.
That is true. I have been saying that I think Rodgers is definitely, I don't want to say washed now, but he's as close to washed as you can get without actually being it. And then there's the fact that Matt LaFleur's system is just not it for Aaron Rodgers. The LaFleur system just doesn't look like it fits Aaron Rodgers that well. And what is up to the Entertainer Stock talking sports in the chat? He says, stand up. Thank you for tuning in, Tana. For those of you guys that don't know, Tana just started a movie channel. So go over there, sub him up. I actually have a movie podcast as well. I actually haven't touched that podcast in a while. It's been probably 2 months since I made a new episode talking movies on my podcast. So there's that. But go check out Entertainer's channel and all that. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers, chat, let me know. Is Aaron Rodgers at this point washed? Is he a little overrated? And since you talked about them drafting, everybody knows the big draft night surprise they took Jordan Love. You think he's going to kind of rebel a little bit and maybe not perform well next year on purpose, kind of like how they did to get rid of McCarthy?
I hope he's more mature than that. I think he's got to know at 36
Mm-hmm.
that his days are numbered. And, I think that if he does that, they're just going to bench him.
Okay.
He's not young. And, like, we've been spoiled recently as NFL fans with guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. 36 is old for the NFL. You know, it really is. Like that's about when Eli started falling off.
That is true.
I mean, people keep talking about Big Ben bouncing back. He's going to be 39. He just came off of surgery. Philip Rivers is
I
pretty
kind of
close to wash.
expect, like, I don't know why. I just feel like Ben is going to get injured next year during some point.
So, I mean, it's people were spoiled, especially with Tom Brady and Drew Brees, but a little bit Peyton Manning. You see it with Brett Favre too. I don't think people understand that. Like late to mid 30s is old.
What is up, TD in the house and Wolves? And Dylan says, well, then why would they give him a huge contract? Then are you talking Rodgers or somebody else that we mentioned? Before we get to that, though, because I don't want Mr. Fishing's question to just scroll up and not get on notice, he said, I think a lot of our season depends on Peppers taking a big step up in his game and becoming a leader of the defense. How do I think this plays out? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say Peppers. I would say the defense as a whole. Not the rookies coming in, but the guys that have been there for like a year or two, they need to take a step up. I don't think you can put all of it on Jabril Peppers. He certainly has a part to play, and I think he's going to be greatly helped out by the arrival of Xavier McKinney and the potential that's just there in the Giants, defensive backfield. But a lot of people on the team need to take a step up on that side of the football. You're talking Leonard Williams. He needs to turn some of those QB pressures and QB hits into sacks. You're talking about Dexter Lawrence, who had a great rookie year, by the way. If he has a repeat of that, I'll be fine with it. But I expect him to have an increase in snaps, so I expect an increase in production. You talk about either Lorenzo Carter or O'Shane Zimenez or Kyler Fackrell. We need some type of pass rush to step up. There's a lot of people on that side of the ball that needs to take a step forward. What do you think, Dan?
I think that it's going to be a big thing on how the new linebackers come in too, with Blake Martinez. So I think Peppers is good. So I don't know how much more of a step we want from him. He's going to have to take over. He's going to have to step up in that leadership role. He's going to have to make sure McKinney and Baker, if he's playing, and Bradbury, as he comes over, fit in and fit well together. But from a talent perspective and stuff, I think he's already where we need him to be.
Fishing did say, and what is up, Jabartha era? He says, I think we need a pure leader on the defense. That's true. As of right now, I don't think I could point out somebody that's the leader of the defense. Like, for example, on the offensive side, I could point out, oh, it's Saquon, or with what DJ has done this past offseason, it's Daniel Jones. When you look at the defensive side, I'm like, who is actually the leader of that defense? I mean, there's not somebody that I can single out. I would assume maybe Dalvin Tomlinson, because he's been there the longest out of anybody on the defense. I think he's the most tenured player. I don't know. Maybe it is Leonard Williams. Who knows? I don't think it's going to be somebody new like a James Bradbury or anything. Maybe it is a Peppers. But as of right now,
I hope it's
is there a
not
leader?
Baker. Dylan just said Baker, and I couldn't help but laugh. I hope it's not Baker. I think Peppers has got to step up and become that leader, especially for the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, even Bradley's out here saying, what up, leader of the defense has to be Jabril, I think. Wolf says Bradbury can't step up. He can't step up as the season continues, but as we're going in right now, I don't know if he is going to be the leader going in right now. Is my camera getting out of focus? Okay.
It was for a second there. I don't think we want him to be the leader immediately. You don't want a new guy coming in. Like, I feel like so you know, I feel like it's like if you work at a company, so and you've got a set way, and someone new comes in, they have to kind of learn the way you do it, and then talk about how to improve it off things they know. But if they show up and try to take the lead right away, everyone just doesn't listen to them. Like,
Hmm.
no, we've been doing this for years. Like, we're not failing as a company. Like, so like the Giants, like, no, this is our way. Like,
I mean,
we've
if you use that analogy, they were technically failing as a company for the past 3 years.
they were. So
But I
that
agree with you.
that's
I don't think it could be somebody that just came into the locker room.
maybe by the end of the season he could become the leader, but I,
Hmm.
I think it needs to take a little bit.
Big Blue
Uh,
Wrecking Crew, what is up, my guy? He says he made it. Jabbar says, hopefully Judge doesn't flunk like the other coaches under Belichick or just from the Belichick coaching tree. And actually, I didn't know there was a buffering emoji, Wolves. That's pretty cool. But when you look at the Belichick coaching tree, right? You talk about guys that have succeeded. You look at guys and you say, all right, Brian Flores, I guess that's the most recent example. Yeah, he was with the Dolphins, obviously, but I think he had a successful season considering what everybody was, assuming he was going to have. You look at dudes like Matt Patricia that, in all, in my opinion, is a bust as a head coach. You look at dudes like Bill O'Brien, who, while is a terrible general manager, somehow, some way, he's managed to get the Texans into the playoffs more often than not. I think Judge. Listen, the reason I think Judge is going to have success is just because I feel like Belichick set him up for success. You look at last year and the fact that he was, both the special teams coach, and for that year they made him the wide receivers coach. That was a move that, to me, in my opinion, Belichick knew he was going to leave for a higher job. I don't think he expected head coach immediately, but I think Belichick knew he was going to leave for a higher job, and so he added that to help Judge out, to add something onto his resume other than just special teams coordinator. That is something coaches do in the NFL, and I feel like Belichick was setting him up for success. So I feel like if he has faith in Judge, I will have faith too, but obviously I still got to see it on the field.
I mean, and people forget Nick Saban is a Belichick disciple.
Oh, yeah,
And
like I even forget that sometimes. Great point. Greatest coach in NCAA history.
yeah, I know he failed in the NFL, but he came up on a bad Dolphin team. Josh McDaniels had he was mixed with the Broncos. It wasn't an all-out failure, and he was straddled with the Tim Tebow at quarterback.
Hmm.
Like you said, Bill O'Brien's been pretty good. So I think it's just recently there's been a lot of failures. Romeo Crennel, I don't know if I'd call him a straight up failure. He did okay in his tenure with the Chiefs. Obviously, he
And he's a
didn't
really
do
good
well.
defensive coordinator.
Yeah, obviously he didn't do well with the Browns. But the
It's like I
Browns,
kind of want to give him a pass, but exactly what you said, right? It's like I kind of want to give him a pass because it's the Browns, but then it's like that means I got to give every head coach that went to the Browns a pass, and I can't do that because Pat Shermer
I,
was with the Browns.
I kind of give every head coach that was with the Browns since they came back, since the mid '90s a pass because they've had 20 some quarterbacks. That owner, like, it's almost like I give Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan a pass for their struggling in Washington because of the owner.
Hmm.
I feel like as long as
Dan
Daniel
Snyder is
Snyder
there.
owns the Redskins, they're not going to be wildly successful.
Hmm. That is true. Dylan says he can be. I guess this is talking back to Peppers. He can be a veteran present for our young boys. Uh, Judge is going to be a coach, not a coordinator. Discipline and pride will be back in our organization. I'll tell you what. I definitely think discipline is going to be back into the organization just because of the way he operates. But it's very ironic that for the first time since essentially Coughlin, we've had somebody that emphasizes discipline so much that his first offseason is filled with Aldrich Rosas, doing Aldrich Rosas, and the whole situation with Baker. And Baker looks innocent, by the way, which I'm completely grateful for. It looks like he's going to get off. It looks like somebody was trying to frame him. At least that's the way his very, very good lawyer is painting it to be, and he might get off just scot-free, which I think that I'm just thankful for. But it is kind of ironic
Until
that that's happening.
until for whatever reason Roger Goodell gives him a 2-game suspension. Um, I don't think you can really look too much at this year because he wasn't the coach before. He's not the GM. He hasn't had a lot of saying these players. If it was the rookies that were drafted since he took over as head coach, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm a little worried. But
Hmm.
these guys haven't even had in-person conversations with them.
That is true. Wolf says
So,
Bill O'Brien is a hack, and what is up, Jesse Bryan? How you doing? So, speaking of which, right? He hasn't really had to talk to the players, face to face and whatnot. But one person that should be gone, whether you talk to them face to face or not, is Aldrich Rosas, and I don't know why Rosas is still on the team. Because unlike Baker, and you said it before we got on stream, it's cut and dry. What do you think is happening there?
I have no idea. I mean, it seems so unbelievably cut and dry to me because he was speeding, he's fleeing the scene, he was drunk. I was watching your stream the other day where you're trying to decide whether or not like what the felony was, so I looked it
Hmm.
up. He had two felonies.
Really?
If you're above a certain BAC, blood alcohol content level, it's technically a felony. And a hit and run is a felony right away. And then it can be a felony with reckless endangerment, depending on how fast you're driving and how long you're running from the police.
Hmm.
So he might have three felonies. I think that the reason, and somebody said it right there, W7 Ives, I think it's because Stephen Kukowski was injured last year and they haven't been able to get in and work him out. So I think that they're kind of waiting to work him out and decide whether or not he's the guy. Because he's 36 and he was injured. Because it's the only reason why that he's not been signed yet, in my opinion.
That I
Uh,
completely agree with you and Wolves there. I think the most immediate person that comes to mind when you think about replacement would be Gostkowski, but he was injured last year. So it's kind of like what happened with Cam, right? Like Cam just got signed last night, or was it 2 days ago, or was it last night? It was 2 days
it
ago, right?
was, it,
Sunday.
I,
So it was 2 days ago.
yeah,
So whatever
yeah.
the case is, the reason Cam took that long to get signed is because the entire time he's apparently been trying to get his physicals, worked out properly, get in touch with doctors properly, and that took months because of the current situation. So maybe the Giants are taking. It might take a while before we sign another kicker just because of the physical situation. And Edward Chan is saying destroying. I don't know if you know about destroying. He is a former NCAA kicker that also has a YouTube channel, but he got kicked off of the team because he had a YouTube channel. Because there's that dumb rule, like how you can't
Yep.
make money if you're an athlete in college. And destroying is actually a pretty good kicker power wise. So there's that.
Mhm.
Another good one is I forget the guy's name, but the kicker for the New York Guardians from the XFL. He's an all right kicker, and he's used to kicking him at Life Stadium. So that's somebody else they could look at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's options. There's definitely options. I wanted to give a shout out there. I'm gonna butcher this name, but O Oloku Betiki Jr. Jesse Bryant shared it. It's got a YouTube channel called King Woe. So everybody go over and subscribe to him. He's
Hmm.
a Giants undrafted free agent.
I'll tell you
Obviously,
what, he has a very Giants-esque name.
that he does. Obviously, Lawrence Tyne is not an option. Lawrence Tynes,
I saw somebody
he's
put that
he's
in there,
very
yeah.
old.
Wolves said he wants Lawrence Tynes back. Listen, man, if Tynes was like 10 years younger, 100%. And by the way, Tynes is an absolute savage on Twitter. I don't know if you guys follow him on Twitter. Go ahead and do that. The former Giants kicker that kicked us to the Super Bowl twice. An extremely funny dude on Twitter.
Yeah, and like you said, I'd love it, but I think he's like Adam Vinatieri's age.
Hmm. And somebody else said Pat
So,
McAfee. Contact Pat McAfee and get him to be our kicker. Oh, man. I mean, Pat McAfee looks like he still wants to play, but I don't know how he'll perform at kicker. That's something
wasn't he a
else.
pun? I was
Yeah,
gonna
because
say
he
he
was a
was a
punter.
punter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know how he'll
yeah.
perform at kicker. Maybe he can make a couple field goals. Who knows? Who knows? Another thing you wanted to get into was, and I'm sure people in chat would like this, why in the world is the whole Josh Gordon thing coming up? Now then, I think I talked about this. Was it last week or a couple days ago? And apparently somebody on CBS Sports first brought it up, saying that Josh Gordon to the Giants would be a good what you call it, a good fit. And then it just sort of slowly grew, and it got over to Twitter, then it got up to YouTube, and now it's kind of all over the place that the Giants should sign Josh Gordon. What exactly do you think about that?
Oh man, Josh Gordon. I think. Josh Gordon's a complete head case, and I don't want him. Um, he's so talented that it's hard to say, but when it comes down to it, I don't want him. He can't stay on any team. Um, what's going to happen is you're going to have 2 or 3 weeks of him not doing anything as he learns the offense. Then he'll have a breakout game. And then the next day you'll find out that he failed a drug test or he got a DWI or he's just MIA. So I'm really looking, and me and you were talking a little bit. I like the Demarius Thomas, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
There's also been some talk about Des Bryant. He's been out of the league for so long, but he's big, and he's not really, he's just a big body that hasn't been too beaten up. And he's actually younger than Demarius Thomas, even though he's been out of the league 2 years. I think Demarius Thomas, though, would be my favorite. You just don't want to sign him to more than a 1 year contract
You
at
don't want
his
to sign him
age.
to anything more than like a 1.5 million.
Yeah. Just a 1 year, high incentive laden, maybe similar to what the Pats did with Cam Newton
Mm-hmm.
type contract. Um, and then hopefully next year we can go out and draft or pick up one of those big body kickers, because I'm a little worried that Evan Ingram isn't going to be able to fill
Yeah.
that role for us. Just the more and more I research about his injuries, I'm just getting
Dylan,
more and
by the
more
way, Dylan, if you're
nervous.
talking about Jesse Bryan, he was actually promoting a undrafted free agent of the Giants, so that's fine. Wolf says I should be our kicker. I'm terrible at kicking a football. I've tried it before, trust me. And we got a lot of people in chat saying, nah, no Josh Gordon. They completely agree with you. He's a head case, and so do I. The thing with Gordon is that, for me, it's more so that he has legitimate issues that need to be addressed by a professional that it
Oh
looks
yeah,
like he just hasn't been able to conquer in all of his years in the NFL so far. Like, that's something that needs to be addressed, and I don't think it's something that the Giants should take on, or any team for that matter. He needs to get that sorted out if he ever wants to play football again, because it's addiction, and addiction just doesn't go away. And then with Des Bryant, ooh, my doorbell just rang, so I'll if it gets a little bit loud, I'll just sort of mute it. But with Des Bryant, it's more so like I agree with you. He's been out of the league way too long.
yeah, yeah. And I just someone saying Thomas isn't as talented as he was in Denver. Yeah, I know that. I think everybody knows that, but we're just talking about we need that big body receiver in the red zone. The other thing I was gonna say is piggybacking off Josh Gordon. It's because he's never been away from the NFL long enough. They keep suspending him, then letting him back in, or he's saying he's going to go to rehab. He goes for a month or two. He got a lot of money at a young age, and he has some addiction issues and some mental health issues, and he needed to take the time to get himself straight. And he's just never been afforded that, or he's never done it himself. Like, he'll go for a couple months. That's why I said, like, he'll show up, he'll come to practice, he'll look okay, he'll learn the offense, he'll have a breakout game, and he'll go get high as a kite and crash his car.
Exactly. And to the Thomas comment, the thing is that we don't need him to be as talented, or any of these guys to be as talented as they were in their primes. If they are going out to sign these guys, I'm assuming they're bringing them on to be a third or fourth option. So they don't need to be that talented. And like I said, I don't think that the Giants need to do this. But if they do, you shouldn't look towards guys like Josh Gordon or Des Bryant, whether it's injury history or just, history of not being able to stay healthy otherwise. Mr. Fishing says, I think Corey Coleman is going to be clutch. We are fine on offense. Someone will fill that role of being the big end zone threat, one of the undrafted guys. And that's my hope, honestly. I hope it's the undrafted free agents. One of them, or maybe two of them, step up and make it onto the roster to fill out the Giants' wide receiving depth chart. Because after the first three guys, after Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton, there is only one guy of note, and that's Corey Coleman. And Corey Coleman has his own injury history. And then after that, it's like special teams guys. So I do hope it's one of the undrafted free agents that maybe step up and take that role.
And Corey Coleman is a sore subject for me. His rookie year with Cleveland, I thought he was going to be a stud in fantasy. He came on really strong at the end, and then he has never been anything since then, really. So hopefully that can change. The talent is 100% there with Corey Coleman.
Hmm.
There's no doubt about that. But some of those other things, I worry about a lot of the other things with him.
That is very true indeed. Do you think the Giants necessarily need to go out and get another wide receiver, or do you think we're fine?
I don't think we need to get in our wide receiver. No, I don't think we're in a position where we're going to be competing for a Super Bowl. So I don't see the point in signing a Des Bryant or a Demarius Thomas, especially Des Bryant with his little bit of a history, or a Josh Gordon who also has the history of being kind of locker room issues, because we're not in a position to compete for a Super Bowl. Um, I think we are like one or two pieces away from having a great offense, but we're not close on defense, and we're not as much as I'm pretty confident Daniel Jones is going to take the next step. We're obviously not 100% sure.
I actually think we have a great offense as of right now, and I might be one of the only ones, but I really think that if the line clicks, and it all depends on the line, and I do think this is the best line that we've had in almost 10 years, because that's how long we've had offensive line struggles. But I think that if the line clicks, it's going to help out Saquon, and Saquon just running into the ground, and the running back group in general, right? Saquon, Deion Lewis, Wayne Gallman, or whoever else is going to be back there. I think if they have a successful season, Jones is going to have a successful season. And with our weapons, we have the potential to be a really, really good or potentially really great offense this year. I think we're going to be top 15. And if everything breaks right, possibly top 10. But I do think the offense is there already to be a top 15 offense.
And I'm laughing. I agree with you with the offensive line, because we had such a great offensive line for so long. And then, as Edward Chan says, Jerry Reese came in and just ignored it. He forgot, like, guys age, they retire, they get injured. He was like, yeah, we'll be good forever. Because we really did, from mid 2000s to the early 10s, have a great, arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. When 2007, when we won the Super Bowl, 2011, like, but those guys aged out, and Jerry Reese did not draft anybody at line for way too long.
And the thing is, even when Jerry did try to draft, he just did not so good of a job. Obviously, Eric Flowers, Justin Pugh, Weston Richburg. Although Weston Richburg has been, like an average player in the NFL. Wolves says, answer the previous question. What was your previous question, Wolves? Both of those people are high on meth? Who?
People who want Josh Gordon. Um,
I don't see your previous question, Wolves.
have Hub be our kicker. You said no to that.
Yeah, I already answered that if that's what you're talking about, man.
Think Corey Coleman could be clutch. We agreed he's got the talent if he could stay healthy.
It's all about staying healthy, and which is the same thing as Evan Ingram, by the way. Fishing says, I hope we get to keep Golden. I think he deserved a contract. I am in 100% agreement with Mr. Fishing here. I am one of Marcus Golden's biggest fans, and if you were to ask me last year around this time when we first signed Golden if I was going to be his biggest fan, I would told you no, because I didn't expect him to have a 10-sack season. And whichever way he did it, whichever way he got it, he made Giants history. I think he's the first linebacker since Lawrence Taylor to have 10 sacks for the Giants, and he's the first pass rusher since JPP in 2014 to have at least 10 sacks for the Giants. So whether you like it or not, that's some part of Giants history that Marcus Golden holds, and he was our best pass rusher last year. I don't like the argument saying that he's what you call it, scheme dependent. I definitely think there's some truth to it, but it's for you to say all 10 of his sacks came from him being in that scheme last year, I think is unfair to Marcus Golden, the player, because he went down with an ACL injury in 2017, which in every single sport when you get an ACL injury, it takes 2 years to recover. It's not a 1 year recovery. You're back on the field in 1 year, but you're not back to yourself until the second year. You could look at basketball and you could see it like that. Football, other contact sports, it's like that. Golden, his second year of recovery was 2019 with the Giants. I think that plays into it as well, him getting back to his old form and getting back to sacking, because that's why he was so confident, to get with any team in general, not just the Giants. He was out there on the market looking for any team, so I think that plays into it. Then, there's the argument saying there's coverage sacks. We had one of the worst secondaries in the league last year. I don't know how many coverage sacks you could get with that, but Marcus Golden for sure is going to – I want him back so badly. and he definitely deserved a contract better than what he's gonna get, which looks like he's gonna come off for like around $4 to $5 million. He definitely deserves something better than that, being a 10 sack, player. And yes, Wolves, there is gonna be Young Guns tonight. It's gonna be on Kid Blue's channel tonight.
Yeah, I know Blake Martinez. There's been some talk about him being terrible at coverage, Edward. But I'm going to go just piggyback more off of what you were saying with Marquise Golden. I think it's impossible to get 10 scheme sacks when you're not on a great defense. I think it's even impossible when you are on a great defense because
Mm-hmm.
you still have to be fast enough and talented enough. In the NFL, the quarterbacks are moving towards more athletic. A lot of these guys aren't stationary. You're not getting these sacks on Peyton Manning and Eli Manning style, like not moving. These guys, they know how to move in the pocket, they know how to run, and I don't believe. I believe you can do slightly better in a scheme, but I don't believe there's true scheme players that just can't fit in other. I mean, the NFL's too talented. There's
Mm-hmm.
too many great athletes to where somebody's just 100% a scheme player. Case in point, everyone said Wes Welker was a scheme player with the Patriots, but he went and he did it with Denver too. He ran great routes. He just needed a team to be willing to give him a shot. So with Golden, I think the talent is clearly there with 10 sacks. He just needed a team to give him that shot, and hopefully the Giants can get him back again next year, and he can keep it up because we've not had great defensive players. So it's not like other people are drawing the double teams.
Yep.
Even he's beating guys one-on-one left and right. He's doing a lot out there to get that.
Exactly. What up, Anthony Corporan? He says, "What up, Hub? What do you think of Dion Lewis helping out Barkley?" We could get to that a bit later because there's still a couple of defensive questions here. Mr. Fishing says that Golden has the motor and anticipation to get to the QB, which I think you just talked about. I mean, you look at games like, for example, the Patriots game. I think was one of his best games of the season, and that's against a Patriots offensive line where Marcus Golden looked like an absolute monster out there on the field. He was really wrecking Tom Brady's day for like the first 2 or 3 quarters, right before the Giants defense just collapsed and let them win that game. But you look at games like that and you can say, all right, this is not a scheme player. And I'm not out here saying, oh, Marcus Golden's a top 10 pass rusher. Nah, I'm not saying that. But I am saying he's a lot better than what people give him credit for, and he should be back on the team. And Edward Chan says, bro, Blake Martinez is terrible at covering. Listen, man, I Dan over here knows the deal between me and Blake Martinez. Since like the first time we signed him, I was on the side of it's a good signing because of how he performed in 2018 with James, not with James, I almost said James Betcher, with Patrick Graham, the current defensive coordinator. In 2018, Martinez had by far his best coverage year as a linebacker. And then also, he was misused in the Packers defense. He was purposely being used as the cleanup linebacker rather than, the Packers using his talents or trying to use him any other way. He admitted, he says he was being used only to clean up the tackles of the pass rushers or, safeties or other linebackers. So I'm not saying the dude is going to come out here and be like Luke Kuechly or something, but I think you need to give him a bit more credit. Even if he just comes out and is a tackling machine, our last good middle linebacker that everybody likes to talk about is Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce wasn't good in pass coverage. Antonio Pierce was
No.
just a tackling machine. So even if he is that, he's still going to be a good addition. But I do think he can possibly be good in coverage this year.
Is it that important too for an inside linebacker to be that good in coverage?
Like, look at what AV Sports just said. I don't know if you can see that comment. He says Blake does not need to cover with our safeties or with our secondary if they perform up to snuff.
No, and that's what I agree. He's not an outside linebacker. He's the middle. He's the middle linebacker. You know what I mean? So he's not left out on an island as much trying to cover a tight end or a slot receiver. He's got a section. He's got the middle of the field. So he's not going to be following the receiver back and forth. So if we use him correctly, you can hide a middle linebacker's poor coverage a lot better than you can hide an outside linebacker. And if he's not missing tackles and he's a great tackler, they're not getting any yards after catch. Okay, you want to dip and dunk to the middle of the field for 3 or 4 yards and get jacked up by Blake Martinez every time? Go right ahead.
Exactly. And then you talk about, like, and this is this is just completely my imagination running wild now. You talk about somebody like maybe a Ryan Conley returning, and if Conley can perform like he did when he started for the Giants, from weeks 2 to 4, then you don't need Martinez to be there because Conley was pretty good in coverage. Also, of course, very small sample size. We don't know what we're gonna get with Conley this year. Just hope for the best, I guess.
Yep.
And then getting back to Anthony's question, he said, "What do you think of Dion Lewis helping out Barkley?" Dion Lewis signing, it confused me at first because I thought they were really gonna go for a heavier back, somebody that can just, be that bruiser back to back up Saquon, take some of the heat off of him. But now that I think about it, our entire backfield is kind of the elusive back build. You got Wayne Gallman, Barkley, and Dion Lewis, and maybe that's just the style that the Giants want to run with this year. So what do you think about that?
So I like the Dion Lewis signing too. Number one, he's been with Joe Judd before. Number two, he's got really good hands out of the backfield. He can catch balls real well. So he fits a similar style, similar skill set to what Barkley does. Number three, even though we got some linemen, I was telling you before, we were the worst in the NFL last year with tackles. So one of the good ways I feel like to hide bad tackles or to help teach a new NFL tackle, which we're going to be doing this year, is to have a running back that can catch the balls out of the backfield that you can get out to, do little quick passes to, and do little screens, have the tackle running out in front of them. It puts a lot less pressure because your your outside linebacker or your defensive end can't come running at the quarterback like a bat out of hell. If you've got a good running back that can catch it and make them pay, if he gets out alone with just a corner, I mean, Dion Lewis can make corners miss. Saquon Barkley can run them over. So it kind of makes it so that defensive end has to stay home that half a second longer, which should help help hopefully Nate Soldier make the next step and help and I'm drawing a blank, Andrew Thomas improve. And
I
become
completely
that
agree with you there.
guy we want him to be.
Exactly. And then Mr. Fishing brings up the point I was about to bring up also. You were talking about helping, tackles learn with Andrew Thomas and maybe even Matt Pert later on in the season. Who knows? Maybe if Solder really performs terribly. But Fishing does say that we need to move Thomas over to the left and Solder over to the right since we're stuck with him anyway. And that's always been my reasoning as to why we should start Thomas at the left side. Is because, Solder's going to be on the team anyway. Just put him over at the right side. He's going to be on here for like a year more at most if they don't cut him halfway through the season or something like that. Just put him over to the right side and just let Thomas get his experience to left tackle. Let him start there immediately because he's going to be there eventually anyway.
He was a left tackle in college.
Yeah.
And he was a stud left tackle in college. And I know that left tackle is more important because you have the blind side. And obviously, Daniel Jones has had some fumbling issues and some presence issues that probably be the biggest knocks on him from last year. But I don't understand if this guy is really as good, and I think he is, as everyone's saying. He's two-time All-American, unanimous All-American. Why not put him right out there? We were talking about that on our last podcast with, or maybe it was the one before, with like rookie quarterbacks. People are coming into the NFL now, NFL ready. Mm-hmm. The college is running a lot of pro systems. They're really getting these guys ready. He's a 6'5", 315-pound man. This is not a boy. Why not put him at left tackle?
Exactly. We were talking about that with quarterbacks, specifically saying like how I would like quarterbacks to sit more, but they don't need to because they're coming in and they're just ready to take the starting job immediately. Is the way that the college football program is building them now, which kind of leads into why a lot of people think they should get paid, which is a discussion for another day. But I do think they should get paid. I don't know what exactly your thoughts are on that, really quickly.
I wrote a whole report in high school on why college players should be paid. It's hard with Title IX because if you actually look, most of the women's sports aren't making money. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the men's sports aren't either, outside of basketball and football. So the question then becomes, from a fair perspective, if you're going to keep these other sports, which I think you should, it offers a lot of people scholarships and chances to get into college and chances to better themselves. How do you make it fair? That's the big question, because I think they should be able to get paid. I think it's ridiculous that they can't even get paid to work summer camps as athletes because, oh,
You
you're
look at like
making
what
money for
happened with
what you do.
Destroying, as I was saying earlier. He got kicked off of his team just because he had a YouTube channel and he was making money off of YouTube.
Yeah, so they should get paid, definitely. I just don't think it's as black and white as some people like to make it out to be. Um, I so yeah, they need to get paid. Just they got to figure out what's the best way to do it. Um, because if they don't, too, like you're seeing with the NBA G leagues getting bigger, in
Yeah, there was that one
baseball,
basketball player that just went straight from high school to the G League instead of going to college.
it's been that way for years in baseball. Like
Hmm.
none of the top prospects go to college. Um, so, if you don't want college football and college basketball to become like college baseball, where people watch double A, triple A, single A, they don't watch college baseball. You got to figure some way out to pay them something.
Hmm. The pretty good points you brought up there, and I really do agree with them. Not much to add on, but yeah, I mean, you don't want to. I feel like it's exactly what you say. There's going to be something as a substitute eventually in the future for these players to go to if they're not going to get any type of reward from playing. And there's people that argue, oh well, they're getting their scholarship, yeah, but then they're also making schools hundreds of millions of dollars that some should definitely go towards the players also.
And
Um,
I would argue, okay, so they're getting a scholarship. My big counter with that was how many of these guys keep their scholarship if they get injured? I have a good friend who played college football. He was a solid high school player, had some ankle injuries. Freshman year, re-injured his ankle. Sophomore year, he was notified that he would not have a scholarship. So they're taking that risk. They're going out there, they're practicing, they're playing, they're putting seats, they're putting butts in the seats, they're making you money, and then if they get hurt, you're cut right away. So if that's the argument, then all of these scholarships should be 4-year guaranteed scholarships.
that kind of sounds like a contract, man, just like the NFL
Yeah.
contracts. Like we're talking about incentives. You get injured, all those incentives are gone.
So I really feel like that it should be, it's not, if you're not paying these guys, but you're saying, oh, we're giving you a scholarship, but if you get injured, we're going to remove your scholarship. They got nothing to show for it.
Hmm. And I know there's cases where it's not even injuries, but players can get it taken away for like stupid small reasons also.
Or somebody really, really good signing
Yeah.
at their position. Like, hey, we just got the number one and the number 10, ranked running backs. So we're going to, like, why Jalen Hurd of the 49ers, why he ended up leaving Tennessee is because they went and they got Alvin Kamara and they had somebody else good there whose name's slipping my mind. So he ended up having to go to a different college. And if
Really.
you're not elite to where you're good enough to actually go to another college, it means that your career might be over.
Hmm. So definitely some points I didn't even know about. Great points brought up there. And I guess to shift it back to Giants a little bit before we close out, because I have to close out in about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Mr. Fishing said, I think we are in trouble on defense. One more year until we can complete the team. I agree with you there, man. Me and Mr. Fishing sort of been lockstep this entire stream, it looks like. I definitely think that we're good on offense, and the one place that needs to be fixed, because I think our defense is going to be, not defense, our special teams is going to be fine. We're going to find a replacement kicker. At the end of the day, it is a kicker position. They're not as hard to replace as, say, a number one wide receiver going down or your quarterback going down. It's definitely easier to replace a kicker. I do think the one part of the team that needs to be fixed is the defense. And if we can do that over the course of this year, then in the 2021 season, we're going to be, in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah. And I think me and you talked about that with the draft and
Hmm.
why we were leaning towards a tackle because we're like, well, we can shore up the offensive line because our offense is a lot closer. We're not going to be able to shore up the defense this year. Like
Hmm.
we're just not going to be able to. And we were lucky that we managed to get Xavier to fall to us in the second round, but we were too far away, and so hopefully moving forward, we'll be able to finish up those, you know, those couple spots on defense. But yeah,
Exactly.
that's why we were saying that they should go tackle over Isaiah
This was
Simmons.
this was one of our earlier streams, like before the draft. If you guys want to go check that out, and I think we even touched upon it after the draft as
April
well.
stream. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
think
if
you're talking April here.
Yeah, so if you guys want to go check out some of the first episodes of this podcast, that was one of the main topics we were talking about. One of the main things was, yo, do we go Simmons or Thomas? Because we were wondering which part of the team is closer to being fixed immediately. Just get that done and then focused on the next one later. And by the way, see you later, Wolves. He says, I'm head out, see you tonight. That is true. Most of you guys in here already know, but if you don't know, Tuesday nights I do the Young Guns podcast with Kid Blue tonight is going to be on his channel. Make sure you check that out. And before we close it out, any type of topics you want to touch? Any fantasy, Giants, NFL topics you want to touch on, bro?
Well, I'm very excited. Next Wednesday, we're going to have the football injury doctor, Edwin. He's a doctor. He's really good on Twitter. He's going to come on and he's going to talk to us a little bit about Evan Ingram's injury history. I'm kind of hoping now with Rosa, he can maybe talk to us a little bit about um, Stephen Gutowski's injury history as well.
And this will be on Dan's channel, on 5WideFootball's channel, by the
Yes,
way.
on 5WideFootball, and it's at FB Injury Doc on Twitter. He's also a writer for FantasyPoints.com. So I'm very excited for that. So everybody who's got the chance, next Wednesday, the 8th, we're going to be having him on.
Yep, it would
Um,
be the Fantastic Giants, me, Dan, and the Doctor.
Yep, Dr. Edwin Porres. So I think that that's going to be really fun to just kind of um, talk about people's injury history. Maybe he'll have a reason why Golden hasn't been signed yet. Like,
Maybe.
hey, this is one that's commonly, they do this often. Maybe he can tell us a little bit more about whether or not people should avoid Cam Newton in fantasy. But I think that's going to be exciting. That's what I'm most excited for.
For sure, man. I can't wait for that. And thank you all for tuning in. Definitely got a good amount of people in here. All y'all that commented, chatted with us, asked questions. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for Dan once again coming on, man. Any last thoughts before we go out? It's been the Fantastic Giants.
I'm good.
Make sure you guys go over there, subscribe,